When we talk about governance, what does governance mean? When I was teaching in university, fundamentally, lots of definitions of governance and so on, but really what it's about is decision-making. So this is about investment decision-making. Which projects should we invest in and which ones should we continue to invest in?
There are people who work in benefits and portfolio management. And then there are those who have helped shape how the profession itself thinks about it. Steve Jenner is firmly in that second category. He is the author of Managing Projects, the chief examiner for managing benefits and managing portfolios, a former senior UK civil servant and an internationally recognized authority in benefits realization and portfolio management. I recently showed Steve how I have been approaching investment governance and benefits inside PROJECTFILES. I wanted him to challenge the thinking behind it. Here's what Steve had to say.
But it highlights the fundamental problem. Just wrap it up from the very beginning. When we talk about governance, what does governance mean? When I was teaching in university, fundamentally, lots of definitions of governance and so on, but really what it's about is decision-making. It's not about just meeting and chatting and monitoring, but fundamentally, Mike Clayton does a really good video about governance. It's about setting direction. It's about oversight, but it's also about this decision-making. Clearly, the project manager makes decisions on a regular basis, but the point is, beyond the level, there needs to be some governance oversight and some senior management input to that decision-making. So this is about investment decision-making. Which projects should we invest in and which ones should we continue to invest in? Now, if governance is about decision-making, it's therefore is also about data or information. Because if you haven't got the information on status, so yes, it's about information. And that information fundamentally is about, in terms of projects, it's about costs, it's about benefits, and it's about time. But fundamentally, if you're tracking a project's progress, we want to know how's it doing in terms of spend, in terms of scheduled delivery against plan, and in terms of benefits realization. So we want to be bringing that into a single place, as you said, get a consolidated view. So absolutely. The fundamental problem, though, is, and of those three categories, cost, time, and benefit, we have in two of them, we've got a single currency. And a currency not in money sense, but in whatever it is, we've got a common currency, pound sterling. So we've got a common currency. So you can rapidly add everything up. Projects add up together. You can add projects, you can have a single overarching figure. Brilliant. In terms of progress against schedule, we've got a common currency. Days, weeks, months, years, minutes, seconds, time. We can measure time. When it comes to benefits, we've got a bit of a problem because there is no common currency. On a fundamental level, you could say you've got financial benefits and non-financial benefits. So obviously with financial benefits, yes, we do have a currency. So you do efficiency and productivity. It might be about this adding customer value, but efficiency doing all that activity, doing more with the same. Efficiency doing the same for less. Productivity doing more for how much money we are spending currently. So that's the fundamental problem. What do we do? And I think the answer partly is to say, avoid the word strategy, but just go back to what are our portfolio objectives? What are our strategic objectives? What are the objectives our projects are seeking to contribute towards? And then you need to have a scale mechanism for assessing what is the contribution of these different projects to those strategic objectives or portfolio objectives. And that then gives you a framework. The second point being, and I remember when I was a benefit manager and the director came, when are we going to get some reports on benefits realised, Steve? I said, well, you haven't rolled the bloody thing out yet. I was being pressured. I felt the pressure to come up with some data, prove some good news stories to justify all the money we were spending running out this IT. Yes, we don't have concurrency, but we've also got this issue. Money, when we're spending, is going out in a constant stream. So we can see it go up month by month. The benefits may be there's nothing, and then suddenly there's everything. Or there may be a ramp up, but they don't flow. Benefits don't tend to flow in the same way that costs will accrue over time and increase. If you think about, we're going to save 20,000, we're going to get rid of one member of staff. It happens all in one go. The day that person finishes, the benefit has been realized.
What Steve has just described gets to the heart of the problem. Governance is about decisions, but benefits are harder to compare than cost or time. So the anchor has to be the objectives. What are we actually trying to achieve? And how strongly does this investment contribute to it? That is also why in project files, benefit starts before project approval. Project proposal, the objectives, the strategic contribution, prioritization, costs, risks, and expected benefits all form parts of the pipeline. So the question isn't, should we just start up a project and then look for benefits to justify it? No. The real question is, should we even invest in the projects at all in the first place? And Steve's next point explains why that distinction really matters.
From your observation of the way businesses operate, do you think businesses care enough about tracking these benefits?
You touch on heart of the beast, or the issue. I was walking through Canterbury Park near me, Watford, at the weekend, and this lady was wheeling her mother through the park, and she said, "Steve," and it was a lady called Sarah Harris, and she said, "We're going to bump into each other," and we bumped in, and obviously got me a bad day because I was like, "Look, Sarah, no one gives a shit, Sarah. This is the problem. I'm bashing around." And that ultimately, that's the problem. The problem is, yes, we're recognizing people aren't tracking benefits and they struggle to track benefits, but in a way, do they care? And I think for me, the answer is you've got to bring it back. The problem is what happens in practice. We still start with a project and we go looking for benefits to justify what we want to do. And then don't be surprised that no one really cares. People treat benefits as something that miraculously happens. What matters, and I'm doing something with this book. It's called The Effective Change Manager's Handbook, and dull title. But anyway, they are the Change Management Institute sponsors it. They're issuing a new version. They asked me to work with one of the guys on the benefits chapter. Yeah, it is the benefits chapter. And it's interesting what he was saying, because I was saying it's about objectives and it's about KPIs, linking benefits to your KPIs. And he's actually gone through he just sent me an email saying, "Steve, I think what we need to do," I said, "Okay, just do it." And what he's doing is he's removing all the references to KPIs as if KPIs was very 1980s. And they are linking everything to OKRs. This idea of objectives, benefits, projects and programs. So in project and program language, benefits equals key results. I think that's interesting. So that's the book that the people who do APMG's change management exam, that exam is based off that book. And so the new version of the book is going to frame it very much around not some sort of generic objectives and generic KPIs, but about OKRs. I think that's the point, but it has to be adaptable to each organization. And that's what the PMI, your benefit categories will vary from to portfolio, because it depends which organization and which portfolio.
Absolutely. The way to look at benefits is to look at objectives and key results.
What are benefits? Measurable improvements. Okay, measurable improvements to what? To your objectives. So you start with whatever your objectives are. What is your portfolio designed to achieve? So you had your headings: efficiency, productivity, customer satisfaction, staff engagement, that kind of stuff. But obviously, Department of Health is going to have a whole load of health related. Work and pensions is going to have a whole load of poverty avoidance or whatever objects they have. Ministry of Defence will have, ability.
So this is quite flexible in that regard. So if you're creating a new benefit, for example, you can see here where you can pick what objectives.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like growth and expansion. Yeah, operational efficiency and productivity, that sort of thing. You're going to new markets, to any of this. And you can adapt this to your organization, basically, and then make it available for selection here. The KPIs, you can take the KPIs that you're linked to, whether it could be maybe conversion.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the revenue per customer you're trying to achieve, and the units you want to measure them by, which we spoke about earlier. So yes, you can, or the category they belong to, it could be customer experience, OPEX savings, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I'm just going to throw ideas out as it occurs to me.
Yeah.
A lot of what you've shown me so far, forget the benefits and then track benefits forecast. Forget all of that for a minute. A lot of what you're showing me is about prioritization. It's a kind of AHP, analytical hierarchy process type model. So you don't look at cost of benefit. What you say to a manager is, look, okay, what's the score? How much does it contribute to the various categories? And then you get overall strategic contribution score.
Okay.
And I think that's valuable. I mean, look, we've got 7 factors and we're going to rank. Now, I suppose different organizations might want to change the weightings, a different factor. And there's a lot of science around this that says it works. And it works because the cost and benefit forecasts in the business case are so inaccurate. So I think there are 2 issues. One is to say, look, what you have here is a method for facilitating improved decision-making by using multi-criteria analysis, because you've got the strategic contributions. And I said that's there because if I say to a project manager, what happened on the last 3 projects you worked on in terms of cost, benefit, and time? And so they come in late, they overspend, and they underdeliver. Then, well, why should we pretend it's 100% on this one?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And with stocks and shares, risk is measured by volatility, standard deviation,
Yep.
the share price. But nevertheless, at least you've got some metric for measuring, or some proxy measure for risk, the volatility. If it's low risk, it's low volatility, then we would expect a lower return, at least in theory. There are models that you can, if you look at the DICE model from Boston Consulting Group, that's in the public domain. So it has 4 factors. How long is the project? How complex is the project? What's the commitment? In the sense that, do most projects deliver on time to budget?
Correct.
When we make that decision,
Yep.
we would expect to see, it depends which areas you operate in. But I mean, if something's got a marginal rate of return and it's super high risk, then was a really?
Yeah, makes sense.
I suppose the other thing is to make that clearer link to objectives, if it's the portfolio objectives or strategic objectives, whatever we want to call it.
Yep.
And I prefer to start with portfolio objectives, because if you say it's strategic objectives, then what you open the door to is people say, oh yeah, but we don't have clear strategic objectives. Okay. But even if your organization doesn't have clear strategic objectives for the portfolio, if you're a portfolio manager or whatever, you've still got within your remit the power to say, okay, let's talk about what our objectives for this portfolio should be. Because otherwise, how do you prioritize if you don't know what your objectives are?
So for this is set at the organizational level, what you're saying is that is too far off. That is good as the North Star, but then we still do need to define it for the portfolio level. Such as the project.
In the sense that the organization might have a multitude of portfolios. And if this, yes, you'd want some measure of the contribution of the IT to the organization's strategic objectives. On the other hand, the IT portfolio will have specifically the portfolio for the IT department will be different from the portfolio in the marketing department. Sorry, and the only other thought occurred to me is that obviously with Agile, we're increasing the idea of a monthly reporting cycle, but that might be consigned to the waste bin of history.
Okay.
Agile, a range of delivery methodologies. A lot of this stuff's about real-time reporting and real-time monitoring. And so I think that makes it even more important, though, that obviously you have the central repository, up-to-date, transparent tracking, cost benefit, time or schedule, and risk.
So in my view, though, the monthly reporting doesn't mean we only update the data monthly. It just means we put a time on the calendar monthly for which we do an actual review. But the data itself is a live document, so to speak, that we just continually update as and when we got the right information. But just dates and events on the calendar just means that we don't miss things. And so people are aware of when to get information and reports, and the project managers or the owners of those documents or data are aware of when they're expected to update the data.
Okay. But I'm saying, I think in terms of monthly, and then I talked to some people and say, I just say, 10 years out of date, Steve, it's all now, and we're having stand-up meetings. Okay.
For me, the conversation comes down to one idea. An investment should have to keep proving its value. I have started thinking about that through 5 stages: purpose, rationale, option, verify, evolve. Essentially asking questions like, why are we doing it? Why does it deserve investment? Is this the right option? Is delivery and value matching the promise? And knowing what we now know, should we continue, change, or stop the project? That's the governed line of sight I am trying to create in Project Files. From investment case to evidence of value. Steve, thank you for challenging and shaping the thinking behind it. If this was helpful, let me know your thoughts. I'd like to read your comments. Send me an email, send me a message. Until next time, remember, leaders deserve numbers they can trust.